Wow, live on air. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining on a Tuesday night at 7, straight after a bank holiday weekend. I think, according to this, we've got 5 people here already. So, to your, I think to the right of your screen, you might have a little chat box there. So I just want to check if you can hear me and see me and everything's looking okay. Will you just drop me a little message down and just say hi? Let me know who's here. So we're going to be chatting this evening about allergies and the singer. It's useful for anybody who's got allergies and who suffers with allergies, and for those who it impacts their singing for. So singers, speakers, teachers. Hi, Josh. Hi, Dee. Also, it will be really useful if you have voice pathologies, such as if you've got a sore throat or a cold, or you're getting hoarseness after a gig or something like that. These exercises you will be able to use to help alleviate that as well. Oh, brilliant, Josh, that's really cool. So Josh did a dissertation on the effect of allergies on the singing voice. I'd love to have a read of that, actually. If we can connect after the webinar, that would be superb. So you probably know a lot of this already, so feel free to jump in and add anything if you think I'm missing anything out. So we've got a little poll, I think, just to get us going, and that is, do you guys suffer with allergies? So who am I speaking with, and why are you here? Is it because you have got allergies yourself? And there should be, all being well. We got 100% yes. Look at that. Okay, so I'm speaking to the right audience here. That's good. And then the second question is, are you singers predominantly, or are you teachers? So again, I've pitched this for singers fundamentally, but it would be great to know where I can delve into deeper ideas as well, whether you're a singer or whether you're a teacher or something else. You might be a speech language therapist, or you might have just jumped in because you were interested. You might do public speaking, that kind of thing. I think that poll should have come up on your screen now. 100% singing teachers at the moment. Oh, good. All right, 50-50. Oh, this is fun. I like this. It's like, oh, let's find out who we're talking to. And then also drop me a message in the message box and let me know where you're from. Are we all UK based, or do we have people from around the world? I know sometimes in the webinars that I've attended before, there's been people from America and other parts of Europe. So let me know. Both to the last question. Cool. Ah, brilliant. Arizona. So we are reaching right across the sea, which is fab. Awesome. So I feel very humbled for my little studio here in the north of England to be chatting to you guys. Thank you so much for dropping in this evening. I am going to get started. I expect that some people might drop in and continue joining us throughout the night. But let's see whether we can get this presentation started. There is actually a slot for questions right at the very end. However, if you do have questions in the meantime, jot them down, and then what I'll do is I'll scroll through the chat towards the end as well, and keep an eye on that and see whether we can answer them as we go. So now we've got that there, I can open my chat box there, and let's get this rolling. So as I've said, we're going to talk about singers with allergies. I'm going to offer some general advice and also talk about a mnemonic called Allergy Flashers, which if you read my article on iSingmag, you will have seen that mentioned, I think. So, learning objectives this evening. We're going to build awareness of allergies and the potential impact on your voice. Now, I think singers, as a general, the biggest impact it has on our voice is the sound. and what my latest research has shown, because I'm fundamentally a teacher, I kind of focused on voice production and voice health. And what I missed was that actually for our students and for singers like you, it's actually about the sound we create. And that's what we need to be focusing on when we're talking to singers about allergies, because actually singers don't care so much about health, dare I say it. I'm sure they do, but actually it's about the sound and the sound that we're giving whilst we're on stage. However, this secondly means that we do need to focus on health. So if we make our way in through sound, then we can work on health after that. So having good health means that our stamina is good, we can keep on gigging, we can keep on going, and also we're not having any loss of range. So we'll identify common causes of allergies and symptoms associated with reactions. And then I've got a few vocal function exercises to share with you guys so that we can achieve a healthier vocalization, improved comfort, and improved sound, of course. Voice function exercises are usually used in the speech language therapy zone. So I suppose they don't find their way into the singing studio quite so often until we start dealing with pathology and that kind of thing. So because it's voice function exercises, it's applicable for voice users who suffer with allergies and for those who don't. So if you're not allergic to stuff, don't zone out just yet. So I'm a self-employed teacher in Cheshire, and I've got a studio in London as well. I work with students. My youngest at the moment is 7, and they span all the way through to adults. And I work with everybody. So I work with total beginners who can't pitch, all the way through to professionals who are gigging week in, week out, going internationally, that kind of thing. So I'm quite lucky. I've got a really varied role. I have noticed in that role that students, whatever level, do report allergies during lessons, particularly in spring and at the beginning of summer. I noticed this year. And I think that's largely to do with hay fever. Hay fever is an allergy to pollen, and that's an airborne allergy. Myself, I've actually personally suffered with allergies since my early 30s. Which is quite unusual. Well, I think it's quite unusual. It turns out it's not. But when I first got allergies, I had some itchiness in my throat because I was eating hazelnuts. And then actually it was an apple, and it was organic. It was out of my parents' garden, and I was eating it in the car on the way back from London. And I went into anaphylaxis. So my tongue swelled up, my throat swelled up. I had all these visions of panic, and luckily my husband was driving and he drove me straight to the nearest hospital, and I was fine. But then I went to the allergy specialist. It turns out I've got an oral allergy to certain foods, and that stems from tree pollen. So early in the season, so February through April, I get really quite bad allergies, and as a result, since 2016, I had total voice loss every year, just around that time, which caused problems for me because I also had gigs around that time. I've done a couple of fully staged operas, having lost my voice a few weeks before. Like, oh my gosh, it's not cool. It's not cool at all. So I wanted to find out what I can do for myself and what I can do for my students, importantly, in order to help this. There's a picture of a cat on this slide as well, and I'm also allergic to cats, but that's nothing to do with the oral allergy. All right, so consequently, I'm more cautious about how I use my voice. And this isn't just me. This is really common of singers across the board who have allergies. More cautious. The recurring voice loss, I should say, can affect your confidence as a singer and performer, because you lose your trust in your voice and you're not sure whether it's going to do the right thing when you're there on stage. Are you going to be able to get those money notes? And that causes high anxiety as well. And like I say, it's really, really common. That's not just my response. That's the response of lots of people who I've spoken to who also have allergies. I've popped in a note here because I'm not a physician. I'm not here to diagnose or offer medical advice. And I think as teachers, that's really important for us as well. we'll come to this a little bit later on, but medication has a different effect on every single person. So something that works for you as a singer or as a teacher might not work for your friend as a singer or a teacher. So it's really best if they go and they get their own medical advice from their doctor, so that can be monitored properly. So why is it relevant for you guys as singers? Of course, the sound that we create is of real importance to singers and professional voice users, because if the sound changes and we're not producing something properly or as expected because our voice health is compromised, we become hindered in our performance. So we don't like what we do and then we get down about that, but also our earning potential, because if we can't live up to expectations, or if we lose our voice and we can't gig, or for teachers, if we lose our voice and we can't speak or teach, then it really affects our earnings too. I think the shocking figure is that allergies are thought to affect more than 1 in 4 people at some time in their lives. The important stat is a quarter. So potentially a quarter of singers have got allergies as well, if we sort of ferry those statistics across. And also at some time in their lives, like I mentioned before, my allergies started in my early 30s. I'd not had them before. Which was a shock to me, and I've had to make really significant changes since then. And Ginevra Williams said, we take our voice for granted unless it goes wrong. How many people can relate to that? Just give me a wave in the chat box. When your voice is working absolutely fine, it's so easy to not do the warm-ups before a gig or at the beginning of the day or before you're doing some singing practice. It's so easy to go out and socialize in loud environments. It's so easy just to do all of those things that we know really aren't good for our voices, but your voice is feeling fine. And those who don't suffer with allergies themselves, I know that's not you because we've had 100% on the poll, so all you guys have got allergies, but those who don't suffer with allergies don't really get how difficult it can be for us singers who do have allergies. So we've kind of got to take it in our own hands to make sure that we can maintain our voice health as best as possible. So allergies are a reaction that the body has to a particular food or a particular substance, and exposure to these allergens or these irritants is a well-recognized cause of voice dysfunction. Some people will suffer from allergies just seasonally. So my example before was hay fever, which is an allergy to pollen. That is a seasonal allergy. So at the beginning of the year, like I said, February through April here in the UK. Now this will probably be different, Dee, for you in Arizona, for example. I'm sure your seasons are slightly different. But for us, we've got tree pollen between February, April. Then in April, the grass pollen starts, and that's our summer season. And that takes us all the way through till September, actually. And then in September, weed pollen starts. Grass pollen and tree pollen allergies are really quite common. I've found from the singers that I've interviewed and spoken to, lots of them have tree and grass pollen. There seem to be fewer people with weed pollen, but I wonder whether that's because we don't speak about it quite so often, whether it's easy to mix them up because it's just so close to the end of grass pollen season, for example. And then other people are just allergic to irritants in the environment. So we're going to talk a little bit about this now. So your common allergens are food. Probably everybody knows someone who's allergic to nuts. Pollen, and like I've mentioned, that can be tree pollen, grass pollen, or weed pollen. It can be flower pollen as well, but flower pollen is usually carried by insects. So unless you go and stick your nose in a flower, you're less likely to be impacted by that because it's not an airborne allergen. Animals, obviously, and also environmental pollution and dust. So there's quite a few things in our environment that it's easy to come in contact with and hard to avoid. It's very, very difficult to avoid an allergen that is in the air around us, in the air that we breathe. For singers particularly, when we start looking into irritants, so the things that causing symptoms of allergies. These could be in our costumes, so dusty costumes, feathers. You know, when you take something out of wardrobe, probably it's been sat there for a while and it's not been dry cleaned for a while. The makeup that we put on our skin and on our faces can be filled with chemicals. And wigs, very, very dusty wigs. And again, similar to the costumes, they just get put in the dressing room night after night. Some of the wigs as well, you know, the really, really big ones just come from storage. The paint that we use on the sets, and interestingly, if you're just at home and you're painting yourselves, you know, like decorating or something like that, we have lots of low odor stuff nowadays, but just because the odor's not there doesn't mean that you're not going to react to it. Dust on the sets. So you've got trappings, you've got lighting rigs, and they are all just filled with dust. And then also dry ice and those special effects and special fogs and stuff, which can be very, very drying. It's not necessarily that we're allergic to them. It's just that they really irritate the throat. And if we're susceptible to allergies anyway, or if it's in our season of allergies, so for example, if you're allergic to grass, that's in the air anyway, then any one of these things can just be a further trigger and just make things worse. So it's hard for us singers. And then we start talking about climate control. So in the hot, I'm guessing it's hot over in Arizona, right? So you've probably got an aircon unit, and the aircon is very, very drying. Here in the UK, it's generally cold. It's quite humid today, which makes a change. It's not sunny, but humid. Certainly in the north anyway. It might be slightly different down south. But in wintertime, we have central heating on all the time. And again, it's very, very drying. There's sort of no respite for us, right? And then in dressing rooms that we use, they can be a little bit dingy and nasty and moldy. If they've got that mold in the corner where it's been damp and nasty and all those weird things growing, we really want to avoid that, because those molds and those spores can set off allergies as well. Also, irritants that your colleagues are using. Sometimes we don't think about the deodorants or the perfumes or the hairsprays that people who we're sharing the dressing room with are spraying. It's not necessarily something that we are doing, but those particles in the air can cause issues as well. And then after the gig, you know, we think we're safe, we think, great, I've done it, everything's great. We go to the bar, we socialize in loud environments because we're shouting over the music or raising our voice over the music. And also probably if we are out in those situations, there will be people smoking around us as well. Finally, last but not least, is traveling to and from the gigs, which doesn't just tire us out. We do get tired from that, and we're naturally tired anyway if we've got allergies, but aircon or central heating in your car or on the bus or on the plane or however you're getting there, just be aware of these things, because all of them will require something that we need to do to try and counter them. So typical allergy symptoms are itchy nose or runny nose or lots of watery mucus. You know, it's like switching a tap on at the top of your nose and it's unstoppable and disgusting, not the most attractive look in the world. Eyes can come very red and bloodshot and weepy. For the ladies that wear makeup and the gents that wear makeup, I guess, that can cause issues because it can make everything look a little bit splotchy and wet and nasty. And also it can cause issues reading music. So if you're a choral singer, for example, or if you're dapping and you're sight reading music, it can be really difficult to read the music or focus on the music if you've got wetness in your eyes and makeup getting in there. The mouth and the throat can get very, very itchy and sore. I always find myself rubbing my tongue across the top of my mouth because it itches. It's not a great sensation. Itchy ears, which you can get excess wax or leaky wax or just itchiness inside. And then if you itch that with anything, then it exacerbates the problem because the ears are so delicate. Lung function changes as well. This year, actually, for the first time, I didn't have total voice loss, which was great because I'd done all of this research and then I was kind of putting it into action using myself as a guinea pig. And thankfully it worked because it was the first year since 2016 I haven't had total voice loss. But what I did get instead was acute allergy-related asthma. And I had an asthma attack. I was like, wow, I didn't have asthma normally. So there's all these weird changes that happen to our body. That said, that was sort of February time. I don't have asthma. I don't need to use an inhaler now because I'm not allergic to grass pollen. So it was definitely symptomatic of the allergies. Itchy skin as well. Yucky. Oh, I didn't finish off lungs. Lungs, of course, wheezing and asthma and bad respiratory problems, that's going to affect our support mechanism. It's going to affect our breathing through phrases. It depends what kind of music you're singing and what kind of genre you work in, but a lot of it relies on breath support and breath control in order to be able to deliver the best sound and the best song and the best performance. Itchy skin, as I just mentioned, and then general symptoms that we get as well, like fatigued, we get disrupted sleep because we're snotting and sneezing, headaches, and then people who are allergic to pollen are also often allergic to certain foods as well, as I mentioned. So I've got an oral allergy syndrome, or pollen food syndrome, I think it's called now, can't remember, and I'm allergic to sort of nuts, apples, pears, anything off an orchard tree, which is dead weird. I can eat them when they're cooked because cooking and heating them changes the protein structure, which means I'm no longer allergic to it anymore. I guess some of you may have a similar thing. I don't know. Obviously, other people have got much more acute allergies that are not associated with pollen food syndrome. They're associated with acute food allergies, so watch out for that. All right, so we mentioned the nose and that being very mucousy and very blocked. Those sinus blockages can also contribute to trouble hearing, which then takes us back to our itchy ears. Of course, if we are struggling to hear, we're then going to try and work harder to produce a sound that we can hear because our voices won't sound like normal. Vocal fold swelling, which is almost inevitable if you've got that itchy mouth and itchy throat, can cause hoarseness, breathiness, or total voice loss. You will feel the hoarseness in your voice if you are suffering with hoarseness, and you can hear the breathiness. So if you're a singer yourself and you're getting those symptoms, just really check in with them and just make sure that you know what's going on with your voice and that you're always comfortable. If you're a teacher and you're hearing hoarseness and breathiness in your singer, then think, well, hang on, why is this happening? What's the cause of this? And is there any way that we can help it? So asthma as well, that does require medical intervention. It's a narrowing of the airways and it affects respiration, as we mentioned. Lots of coughing and throat clearing, which means that your vocal folds get that bash, which is charged and heavy and not what we want, really, because it's just more vocal fold trauma. We have loss of vocal agility. I think this is probably one of the most highly reported things, and that the voice isn't doing that we want. So we've got this lack of voice control, and our usual mobility is just, everything's just not working properly, and it gets us down. So we then end up with a reluctance to sing. I'm hoping that for you guys, because I can see that you're all still here, which is great, but I'm hoping that this is like, you can resonate with these ideas, like, oh yeah, I've got these problems, and yes, I recognize this, and I've had this, or I've seen this in my students. So we will get to what we can do about it in a moment. The discomfort that we feel can cause a secondary problem of muscle tension. I think largely because when we're feeling this discomfort, we try and work harder to try and produce the same sound. And here we go, we come back to the sound that we produce again. Obviously, when we're on stage, we're thinking, I want to deliver something awesome to the audience. And when we've got something wrong with us and we lose that agility, we lose that resonance, we lose our confidence in ourselves, we work harder. And so that's when we start adding extra muscular effort or working harder for the same sound. Williams calls this vocal loading, and she's got a lovely little bit in her book about vocal loading, which is interesting because it's not something that we want to do. The inefficient voice use or muscular fatigue, so when our muscles get tired, which happens easily when we've got allergies, can cause us to hold the muscles in a way that we wouldn't normally. So we're not actually singing like we normally would. We're doing something slightly differently so that we sound as normal as we possibly can. And this can really tire us out. And then I mentioned before about medications. So medications can affect the larynx and the vocal folds. So, for example, inhalers and steroids can be quite drying. And those steroid inhalers, it actually recommends on the label that you should rinse out your mouth after you've had a puff of your steroid inhaler. Decongestants and antihistamines and vitamin C are all very, very drying as well. And you can see that this, like, we're taking a medication to help, I suppose, dry us out because we've got so much wet mucus. But for the singer, that causes a completely new problem, because when we're dry, we're then more susceptible again to breathiness and hoarseness and not singing like we usually would. So we've kind of got a double-edged sword that we've got to ride on here. There's a bunch of herbal remedies. Who knows what they do? And those numbing and menthol sweets, which really shouldn't be recommended, because what they do is they stimulate the skin at the back of the throat so that you can feel like it's doing something. So you get that sort of gust of fresh air and wonderfulness, and it's like, oh, I can breathe. But actually what we've done is we've just stimulated all the blood vessels at the back of the throat, which is why we can feel stuff. Not helpful though. So infections or vocal fatigue, so whether this is from allergies or whether it's from a cold, you can get this tension and disconnect between the breath and body. And I guess it's something that you've probably all experienced if you've got allergies yourself, or you might see that in your students as well, where because we're adding extra muscular effort up here, we sort of lose the connection to down here. So when working with allergies, rebuild the speaking technique before returning to singing. Then I think working incrementally is really important. No matter whether you're a singer or whether you're a teacher, take everything really, really slowly. You don't have to do everything in the space of one lesson or in the space of one practice session. And you can use primal sound for true sound and holistic bodily responses. So the idea of holistic bodily responses is that your whole body is involved. It's not just the throat. It's not just these muscles here that we're singing with. We're actually singing with our whole body. And those of you who are on stage performing will really understand that it is a full body effort, not just a voice system from the lungs to the lips. And then Ingo's work suggests that those semi-occluded vocal tract exercises balance vocal tract impedance. So it's easier to initiate and maintain phonation. There's also a decreased collision force on the vocal folds, which can be helpful for voices inflamed by allergies. And I think that's really, really important. Everything that we want to do when we've got allergies is decrease the collision forces and make sure our breath and body responses are really matching up, so we've not got this disconnect. And let's have a little look. There's no exact formula for anyone. It's different depending on what your symptoms are. So what you need to do as singers is you need to make sure that the exercises that you're doing are remedying the problems that you've got. everyone will have different symptoms, and so therefore everyone will use different exercises. And it kind of comes back to what we usually do with warm-ups. Some people only need to warm up for a couple of minutes and everything's all systems go, let's do this. Whereas others will need to warm up for 10 minutes and they still might feel tired. And then let's think about not just between people, but the day. I had a beautiful example actually this morning. A couple of weeks ago, we had a lesson. We warmed up for ages and still everything didn't feel free and wonderful. This morning, we warmed up for it must have been about 60 seconds and everything was just pinging and ringing and just sounding fabulous. And that's because there were different circumstances that happened before the lesson as well. So work with the student in front of you or work with yourself and your own voice and just really keep an eye on your voice comfort and what's going on for you. The exercises that we're about to talk about, you can draw from, adapt and change depending on your own circumstances. And at this point, before we get into the exercises, I just want to reiterate that there's a really fine line between problems presented by allergies and more serious vocal pathology as well. So if you have problems for more than 2 weeks, book in to see your ENT, just for a scope, who specializes in voice, importantly. So you can go and get a scope and just make sure everything's all hunky-dory. If you don't have an ENT that you see, go to your GP, see if you can get a referral. And again, make sure that they specialize in voice. That's really important. Okay, so students, singing students, singers, whatever you want to call yourself, we must monitor the voice every single day to avoid overuse, misuse, or vocal loading. And awareness of this is your key to optimum maintenance. So vocal exercises that we're going to talk about now. If you have a voice coach already, you're probably working on these exercises as part of your, day-to-day regime of singing production anyway, because this is what we do in singing lessons, right? So we want to promote stamina in the respiratory system to make sure that our breath and body are connected and everything's working and everything's zippy and everything's great. We want that coordination of voice onset and voice release. So we can either make a clear sound or we can make a breathy sound, and we have the choice. So we know exactly what we're doing with our onsets, and we can make those conscious choices before we produce the sound. Unification of registers, so your really, really low stuff to your mid-chesty stuff to your M2 stuff, whatever terminology you want to use. So creak, M1, M2, whistle, and unifying all of those so it sounds like one voice. Improving resonation, so getting that lovely full-bodied sound. Promoting awareness of your true sound, and that's you as the singer. Everybody's sound is going to be different. We've all got our own unique voices, and that's so important. It's such a valuable thing to find your voice and work with your voice, and find someone who's happy to work with your voice as well, to make sure that your voice is comfortable, healthy, and sounding great. Then we're going to work on releasing excess tension, promoting flexibility of the jaw and tongue, and then pitch and dynamic control. This, in singing lessons with beginners, comes much nearer the top. When we've been singing for a while, like with allergies, that pitch and dynamic control is something that, like I said, we kind of lose control over our voices. So it's nice to re-find that again. All right, so voice function exercises. You can start off by stretching the body. As I mentioned before, it's a very holistic thing, is singing. If you want to, I put some books out earlier on, but I've just realised that Janice Chapman's book is in the other room. Janice Chapman has got a book, which is the big red one, and I can't remember the title of it off the top of my head. But she speaks so brilliantly about holistic work. I don't think can everybody else hear me? Dee's just written to say there's an issue and it's hanging on your end. Can everybody else hear me? Just give me a quick hello, or just a yes, I can hear you, Kate, in the chat box. Thanks, Josh. All right, so Joshua's answered my question. Good. All right, I'm going to keep on going and just assume that Dee, there's a problem on your end. Hopefully you'll be able to watch that back on the replay. So if there's anything that you've missed, you'll be able to catch that on the replay. Good. So Janice's book is Singing and Teaching Singing. She talks absolutely brilliantly about holistic voice use and using the body in order to work with singing. And also she's got lots of stuff in there about primal sounds as well, which we mentioned before. So that's a really cool book to jump into. Stretching the body gets your muscles warm, as you would if you were about to go out for a run or go and engage in some sort of exercise. So it's super helpful to do just before you start singing as well. After you've had a good old stretch, you want to find optimum body alignment. I could probably talk for another couple of hours on body alignment, but I like to think about the spine being that lovely curved shape, tail slightly animal-like, elongating an alignment through those 6 core parts of the balance. So your ears, over your shoulders, over your mid-thorax, over your hips, over your knees, over your ankles, and finding body alignment in that way. Then we need to make it fluid, because it's not a very, very rigid thing that's held. It's, again, being able to move through that. With allergies, swallowing is going to help shift mucus on the vocal folds and reduce coughing. I know one of the first things that the speech language therapists recommend is swallowing instead of coughing, because that means the mucus is going to go that way. In normal, healthy, everyday life, we swallow on average about 7 pints of mucus a day. So when we've got allergies or when we've got a cold, that volume of mucus significantly increases. So there's loads of excess clag sitting around here, which is where we get that need to clear the throat. So swallow that down instead of coughing it up, because if it coughs up, it's only going to go one way. It's still got to go back down that way. So it's going to happen sooner or later. So swallow it, get rid of it. A really nice one is the shh pattern, and you can do that a few times, and that also helps eradicate the sensation of needing to cough. I like that one, it works well. Accent method breathing, I'm not going to go into and give you too many exercises now, but I have pre-prepared a pile of books on my on my shelf here, and this is Ron Morris and Linda Hutchinson's book, If in Doubt, Breathe Out. There are some absolute gems in there, and it really breaks down the accent method in a fantastic way. So it's lying down, semi-supine, being super aware of your body and your breath. You see where I'm going with this, right? And then in the book, there's also breakdowns of patterns of semi-occluded sounds that you can make. So it largely revolves around like and bouncing and feeling that respiration in the belly. Really good book. Grab a hold of that. Then you've got all your other semi-occluded stuff. So we've got puffy cheeks, which is you're just letting the air escape between your lips, not out of your nose. Between your lips, so you're keeping your cheeks puffed up as you do it. You've got your rod R. I do all of these to a siren, by the way. Stick within your comfort zone, especially when you've got allergies. You don't need to take anything too high or too low. Just go somewhere comfy. Which is your rod R. You can try these at home with me. That would be fun. All right, so let's start with puffy cheeks. Then into your rolled R. The pigeon, I totally stole off Ginevra, so this is absolutely her exercise. I don't know where she got it from, but it's A's. And it's a rolled R behind puffy cheeks. Which I think is amazing. It's like a little massage in the back of your throat. Lip bubbles, which are the typical ones, but some people can't do them. So my go-to is lip bubbles, and then if they can't do that, I go straight into puffy cheeks, which is a for your lip bubbles. That looks really stupid on camera, so I'm sorry. I'm glad I'm just a little dot down in the corner somewhere. And then your usual humming on an M, and then an NG. Obviously, we've got all the fricative sounds and vowel variations as well. So you've got your z, all those kind of sounds too. For those who don't know, I'm sure most of you do, so I don't want to teach you all how to suck eggs, but semi-occluded vocal tract exercises, or SOVTEs, it basically means semi-occluded, half closed vocal tract exercise. We spoke before about Ingo Titz's work, and he said it's that decreased collision force on the vocal folds. So those SOVTs are really, really useful, whether you've got a cold, whether you've got allergies, whether you're feeling hoarseness, and they're brilliant for warm-ups, and they're brilliant for cool downs as well. So just use them in all walks of life. All right, so I then move into scales and arpeggios. So we start looking at actually tuning stuff rather than just picking out a siren and working with, that singer's own vocal parameters. We then take it to the piano and start just really pitching in with stuff. So I do fricative and vowel variations. So you've got your e, a, or oo, or your z, z patterns. And you could do that, da, 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 something like that. Or you can do that on full vowels as well. Smooth onsets are great. So stick a Y in front. Yeah, go with that, something like that. And then lastly, plosive vowel variations. Pa, 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 pa. I don't recommend doing the plosive onsets until the vocal setup's really optimized. So you're thinking about having really good onsets, good breath control, and we're sort of getting rid of the breathiness and the hoarseness as well. Now, sometimes you're going to get a student who comes with no voice or a really hoarse voice, or they've had 3 gigs at the weekend and they're just feeling super tired. We can play around with SOVTs, but actually sometimes it gets frustrating when you're singing, whether you're doing this in your practice at home or whether you're doing this in the studio with your voice coach. It can get really, I'm going to say frustrating, just repeating SOVTs over and over again, no matter how many sort of musical patterns and stuff we can do. So what I recommend, and these ideas are from Mary Beth Dame actually, some of which, working with song, text, imagination and movement. So Mary Beth's core singing principles, some of them are using movement in that sound, and then imagination, so we can start using the song lyrics and helping singers to memorize the lyrics before we have to go and perform them. Everybody learns in a different way, so we can draw things out, we can write things out, we can imagine things, we can work on emotion and storytelling and all that kind of stuff. And that means that we don't have to necessarily vocalize in full voice during that lesson, especially when you've got really bad allergies and everything's feeling super hard to produce. And then finally, the Lax Fox, one of those big blue bottles with the story thing in the top, or just normal straws, so you can take your gentle vocalization into full voice again there using that. So hopefully that will have given you some ideas. And actually on this slide, I know I've told you about If in Doubt, Breathe Out, but I've pulled up some others, other books as well, which I think are really useful. So whether you're a singer or whether you're a teacher, there are some gems in some of these books. So Jean Callahan's Singing and Science is a really good one. It's very scientific, so but it's readable. Do you know what I mean? It's not too teachery, if that makes sense. I don't want things to be too teachery. This is a Voice by Gillian and Jeremy. There are loads of really good exercises in here, so you can keep things fresh. If you start running out of ideas, keep things fresh. There's a whole bunch of cool exercises in there, and plus there's a whole bunch of stuff that isn't to do with that. 50 ways to abuse your voice. I pulled this out and stuck a little post-it in it because number 45 on their list of how to abuse your voice is expose yourself to environmental irritants. So we know as allergy sufferers that sometimes it's inevitable because those are in the air, they're airborne, but we've got to do something to be able to help ourselves. And if we can, so for example, if you're allergic to animals and you can avoid them, then avoid them because we don't want to be too exposed to those environmental irritants. This book I've used loads. In fact, I've used it so much that I realised when I took it out earlier on, it's actually all the pages are falling out. It's ridiculous. Okay, so this one is the owner's manual to the voice. It's by loads of people. Rachel Gates, Forrest, late Eric Forrest, and Kerry Obert. That's a really nice one. There's actually a whole bunch of stuff on allergies in this one as well, but it's got loads of other useful info. This one is a little bit more teachery. So if you're avoiding the teachery stuff, that one's a bit more teachery, but it's great. It's a good book. And then two more because we're here and I just want to feed you as much info as possible. Right, so the vocal pit stop, keeping your voice on track. It's really short, like it's a really skinny book, super easy to read. I recommend that for singers very much. And then last but not least is Kristen Linklater. And actually I've used her book both for my research on body alignment and on research for allergies as well. And as well, Kristen's got some fantastic exercises and how to free the natural voice. And it's largely similar to what I mentioned about Janice. It's largely to do with that breath and body connection and just making sure that as singers, we know that it's a full body experience. We're not just using this muscular structure here. All right. So in the research that I've done, I've come up with this little mnemonic. I like mnemonics because it's how, turns out it's how I remember stuff too, right? So when I'm with a student, somebody comes new into the classroom and I'm thinking, okay, so what am I doing with this person? They've got allergies. What do I have to remember? You know, these where your mind goes blank and it's like, oh, I'm going to have to pull one book out and go and look something up. So I remember things with mnemonics such as Allergy Flashers. So it's the flashes that we're interested in particularly here. Food. Don't eat food that you're allergic to. It seems really obvious. But also, you want to think about those foods that cause like intolerances or that don't behave well with you as a person as well. So you may not be allergic to it. But for example, ginger biscuits, I'm not allergic to at all. But if I eat ginger biscuits before I sing, I don't know, I just cough. I think it's the crumbs. I've never quite figured that one out. And then also chocolate. Like chocolate for me, I get lots of mucus stimulation and then I get kind of like a little bit bubbly and a little bit gunky. Some people struggle with dairy. I've got no trouble with dairy. I can drink tea till the cows come home. But there's something about chocolate that does it for me. You will notice foods that impact your voice. It shouldn't. It goes down a different tube, right? Your food. But for some of us, it does cause excess mucus or something going on. So avoid the foods that make your voice sound funny, right? Living choices. There's a whole bunch of stuff with regard to living choices. When it's your pollen allergy season, keep the windows closed because then the pollen's less likely to come into your home. If you are able to, change your bed sheets quite often. If you can't change your full bed sheet, change your pillowcase as often as possible because that's the bit that you're lying on at night time. In February through April, I use an air purifier in the bedroom and in the singing studio here. And pretty much all year round, actually, I use an air humidifier. It's not turned on at the moment because it makes a little puffy noise all the time, and I didn't want that to interrupt us. But those air humidifiers, I don't, in the singing studio, I don't put the essential oils in them for obvious reasons, I hope. And it's because some people are allergic to stuff. So I don't want to put like an orange scent thing into the diffuser and then it smells like oranges and someone comes up and they're allergic to citrus fruit. Just have plain old filtered water and then my flavoured ones are upstairs. And then, so that's humidifier, purifier. We spoke earlier on about thinking about how we travel to gigs, thinking about if the central heating's on, we need to do something to counteract that. Same with air conditioning. You don't want to spend too long in these environments if you can help it. If you do have central heating on and your air conditioning on, make sure there's something that's also humidifying the air as well as something else drying it out. And then also living choices that we can make, which are really, really important, is not putting ourselves into places where we're putting our voices at risk. So, for example, if we go to the bar after a gig, we don't want to stay there long or go at all because we don't want to overuse our voice. Same with hanging out with smokers, just avoid that. So it's those social situations where I suppose we get away with it normally, or we don't think about it normally because we're not feeling vocally fatigued. But when you start to notice those first signs of fatigue, things really need to change in our minds and in the activities that we do. Also, as part of my personal living choices, in February through April this year, I had a really, really strict warm-up regime every single morning. Before I did anything, before I would even speak to my husband or my dog, before I did anything vocal, I would warm up my voice and I would use those semi-occluded voice vocal tract exercises that we spoke about on the previous page. So the humming and the puffy cheeks. And that was really easy to do. I did that first thing in the morning. Sometimes I often teach in the morning, but I get up quite early as well. So it sort of ties in. I then warmed up with my students in the lesson as well, which I don't usually do. But as they're warming up, I'm warming up with them. And then after lunch, which is one that these days, when I'm healthy and fine, I tend to skip that one. But whilst I had allergy symptoms, I absolutely diligently warmed up after lunch as well, before I then had my next set of sessions in the afternoon. So making these living choices and just changing into your schedule and just making sure that you're doing everything that you can possibly do that is really great for your voice. And that comes down to awareness. The more awareness that we have as singers of allergies and how our voice is functioning and whether it's functioning like normal, we can then make the necessary adjustments in our lifestyle to make sure that everything starts working properly again. And then steaming. If you steam last thing at night before bed, don't steam just before a gig, because what happens is your blood vessels come to the surface of your vocal folds or the surface of your throat because of the steam and the heat and the wonderful good topical moisturization. We don't want those blood vessels near the surface of our vocal folds when we're singing. So do that last thing at night before bed. Seems like quite a good time to do it. And also for me, it just helped me breathe easier when I sleep. Loads of hydration. You literally cannot get enough hydration when you're allergic to stuff. And then the exercises. So all of those exercises that we've previously discussed, or pull anything out of those books that I've recommended as well. Respiration. This is an interesting one, because what I didn't mention before is, whilst we were talking about accent method breathing and we were talking about that breath and body connection, what I didn't mention, and I kind of overlooked a bit, I guess, is that because allergies can cause us that anxiety and that tension, breathing exercises can also be a fantastic way to relax. So to try and alleviate tension, to get rid of stress, work with an elongated out breath, and just find your really nice place of calm. So we kind of get to do double whammies with our breathing exercises. And finally, get enough sleep. Lots and lots of sleep. I'm not going to argue with that. I like lots of sleep. All right. So promoting awareness and good habits so that we can really find our best sound is kind of my overall message here. If you know what kind of things you can do, and they're all very simple things, and one of the slides earlier on, we said this is the kind of stuff we're doing in our voice coaching practice anyway. So if you are already working with a voice coach, these exercises are probably something that you're already doing. But when we've got allergies, we just need to step back, slow it down, work really, really incrementally and really, really gently so that we can just maintain the best vocal hygiene possible. It's also putting those extra little lifestyle changes, such as the steam and the hydration, into your life plan so that they help as well. And it's useful working with a voice coach because they can hear what sounds you're making, so they can hear whether you've got hoarseness or breathiness, and they will have a whole host of exercises and ideas that can help you refine your true sound and also maintain your voice health. Anybody can get allergies at any time, and this is what really shocked me when I got them in my early 30s. I'm like, hey, I don't have allergies. Why have I got allergies? What's going on? So if by any unfortunate chance you do get struck with allergies and you're wondering what's happening, please don't be afraid to ask for help. You can go and visit a voice coach. You can obviously go to your GP. There are also the British Voice Association. I'm not sure what this would be in America, actually, Dee, but you could find NATS, maybe. I don't know whether they have something similar or whether there's a similar association. But the British Voice Association have got a long, long list of all the voice clinics in the UK and some in Europe as well. I'm really sorry if you can hear my dog woofing, by the way. There's probably someone outside the front window. They've got a long list of voice clinics and also voice teachers who are members of the BVA as well. And the likelihood is that if a teacher is a member of the BVA, like I am, they will probably attend the events, and they revolve largely around voice health and voice maintenance. And then there's also BAPAM as well. So you can check out BAPAM, and they've got long lists of affiliates and people who can help you as well with voice health. So we mentioned that allergies cause voice fatigue. We've talked about keeping a really strict vocal hygiene regime that suits your lifestyle, and particularly choose something that fits in with your lifestyle so that you can do it every day, and so then you're able to produce a good sound when you need to. Don't feel like you've got to talk all the time. You are allowed voice rest as well. And then finishing off, Allergy Flashers, which was your food, living choices, awareness, steaming, hydration, exercises, respiration, and sleep. Gives you those instructions that can help you as well. So they can be learned easily and then drawn from again when needed. I've found that largely when students have allergies, they pick on the bits that are really appropriate to them from that Flashers mnemonic, and then they use that, which has been great. And obviously all of that can be used alongside other prevention and recovery techniques as well. So I hope that that is something that you guys can take away and use and put into practice in your own singing studio and in your own singing performance at home as well. And I really wish you all good health too. So I have time for any questions. And before I do, actually, I'm going to just say thank you very much for joining me this evening, because I'm aware that some of you might just need to rush off at 8 o'clock. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. If you do want to contact me about anything that I've spoken about, I'm really easy to find. So you can just put my name, Kate Cubley, into Google, and I pretty much pop up. My actual handle for almost everything is at Kate Cubley. So you'll find me LinkedIn and Twitter. Facebook, it's Kate Cubley Vocal Coach. And that's my website address as well. And also, I think that Lynn is probably going to put a link. If you're not already a member of the iSingmag tribe and you want to sign up, I highly recommend doing that as well. Lynn has got a fantastic array of webinars, videos, articles. There's all sorts of stuff that you can really get your teeth into in iSingmag. So join the iSingmag tribe and you'll get the newsletters and you'll be able to stay up to date for future webinars as well. Oh, goody. Thanks, Lynn. We've got free webinars on technique, health, careers, and more. And you can also access the past webinar library. So there's discount codes and discount goodies to help you on your singing journey as well. So there's a couple of points that I missed. So last but not least, thank you again very much for coming along. I'm going to just switch this off if I can so that here we go. We can see you in full screen again. Great. And if you've got any questions, Nicola, I can see that you've popped. Can I put a list of the books up again after the webinar? Lynn, can we do that? I'm not sure. I can talk you through them again if there's no more questions. Brilliant. Yeah, Lynn will be able to email them out for you, Nicola. So we'll send that out to everybody who's participated in the webinar tonight with a list of those books. Anything else that anyone would like to ask? Or Joshua, I know that your dissertation was on allergies, so you might agree or disagree with some of the things I've been saying. Nothing? You got like another 30 seconds. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off and sign out. Amazing. Thank you again, everybody. I hope that you've taken something away from tonight. It's lovely to see you from all across the world. And Dee, I hope you managed to catch up on that little bit that you missed in the middle when you had that pause. And take care, everyone. Happy health to you all. Take care. Good night.